Toyota RAV4 TRD Off-Road vs Mazda CX-50 Turbo Premium Plus comparison. As the sun rises over snow-peaked mountains, the view gives you chills. You can see for miles around, and it's just so beautiful. You spot an eagle gliding calmly overhead and look at your hiking buddy, they glance back, knowingly. This is why it's important to experience life out in the wilderness. But there's one problem, you're not on that mountain, you're slumped on the couch watching an energy drink ad on TV. Still, maybe those 30 seconds inspire you to get outdoors a few times a year. Do so, and you'll likely need a more capable vehicle. You're not made of money, however, so one SUV's gotta do it all. One practical vehicle to sit in traffic, absorb potholes, and, of course, project an outdoorsy image for the 95% of the time spent on road. What you crave is something like the 2022 Toyota RAV4 TRD Off-Road, or our long-term 2023 Mazda CX-50 Turbo Premium Plus. Yes, that's a mouthful, but these two SUVs are good for the buyer who doesn't want to go full Raptor. They want a good all-arounder that's a little more off-road capable, or at least looks it. We drove both SUVs on and off-road to get a better feel for which fulfills that mission better. What we found was a much closer finish than we ever expected. Meet our dueling SUVs. Right out of the box, the Toyota RAV4 looks like it's ready for an adventure. It's a quality we've appreciated since the current generation arrived for the 2019 model year, yet it hasn't changed much since then aside from updated infotainment tech. With more than a dozen trims available across 3 powertrains, we picked the TRD Off-Road for this matchup. More than just a badge and trim job, the RAV4 TRD Off-Road has a torque vectoring AWD system that can direct torque to individual rear wheels if necessary. All-terrain tires are part of the package, too, as is special suspension tuning. What doesn't change is ground clearance, which is the same 8.6 inches you'll find on the XLE Premium, Adventure, and Limited trims. Power comes from a 203 horsepower, naturally aspirated 2.5-liter inline-4 putting out 184 pounds-to-foot of torque. Not bad, but no match for our other competitor, the new 2023 Mazda CX-50. Mazda just doesn't come to mind when we think of SUVs with an off-road style, but that's precisely why the CX-50 exists. If the zircon sand metallic example you see here looks familiar, it's because this is our year-long test SUV, the same model we've spent many months and thousands of miles driving. The 2.5-liter turbocharged inline-4 in our 2023 CX-50 Turbo Premium Plus is good for 227 horsepower and 310 pounds-to-foot on regular gas, or 256 horsepower and 320 pounds-to-foot on 93-octane fuel. We ran it on regular for this test. A less powerful base engine is also available, with 187 horsepower and 186 pounds-to-foot, and we've found it feels similar to our turbocharged model in nearly every way except for its merely adequate amount of power. Don't judge the CX-50 by its lower profile and good looks. This SUV is designed to go farther off-road than any other Mazda around today. Standard AWD in an off-road mode help, and ground clearance matches the Toyota at 8.6 inches. Maybe you're wondering where the new 219 horsepower RAV4 Hybrid Woodland Edition is. That variant adds functional and visual off-road appeal, but lacks a power liftgate, and the ground clearance of our two players. Role reversal. Out on the road, things didn't work out the way we thought. The Mazda's 6-speed automatic provided smoother shifts around town than the Toyota's 8-speed. At wide-open throttle, however, the Mazda doesn't make the most of its turbocharged advantage. The transmission delivers agonizingly slow shifts on the way up freeway on-ramps. That's not a huge issue for the Mazda, which in any case has more refined engine tuning that knows when to shut up and stay in the background, but also understands when we want to hear its sporty snarl. With the RAV4, sadly, it's the same old story. If this comparison's off-roadish angle isn't a priority, consider a RAV4 hybrid model to keep the 2.5-liter engine hushed more often. The hybrid isn't just about the added power, driving range, and efficiency, though those things are cool, too. Non-hybrid RAV4 engines are simply too loud and unrefined, even during normal driving. This shouldn't prevent anyone from buying one. But pair the disadvantage with shift shock around town and it doesn't show the RAV4 TRD off-road in the best light. So the Toyota is less refined in some ways than the Mazda, but the two SUVs do return to form in other ways. We prefer the RAV4's lighter steering weight as well as its suspension tuning. Overall, the Toyota is the better riding car, said senior editor Aaron Gold. They are comparable on bad, choppy pavement. But on the smooth stuff the Mazda feels busier and a bit more jiggly to me, the Toyota is a lot more comfortable. On a winding road, the Mazda's more confidence-inspiring tuning makes it more entertaining. After all, if you do occasionally want to go off-road, you may have to carve a mountain road to get there. This really feels like what the Mazda was made for. Body roll is well controlled, though there's more vertical motion than you might expect from Mazda, Gold said, but for the most part it's got good grip, at least by SUV standards, and there's lots of tire squeal to let you know when it's about to let go. The Toyota holds its own, though, and manages a quick set of curves better than you might think. It's not as smooth or as coordinated as the Mazda, but it does the job very well, said Gold. Taking the SUVs off-road. Compact crossovers represent the absolute best compromise of size, price, and performance for many buyers. Getting to that sweet spot means sacrificing the ultimate in go-anywhere capabilities that make the Jeep Wrangler and Ford Bronco such iconic SUVs. With this in mind, we adjusted our expectations for the 2022 RAV4 TRD off-road and 2023 CX-50 as we enter the off-road portion of our comparison journey. The Mazda's off-road jaunt didn't start well, as we had to find a gentler incline for it to crest to enter our loop. The Toyota had no issue with the same hurdle, but did scrape on its way off our course, erasing that peace of mind advantage. Up a rocky hill climb, both AWD crossovers made it just fine, but the RAV4 was the more planted performer. I figured the Mazda would just power its way up our off-road hill, but it did run into a little bit of trouble on one steep section, where it just wouldn't deliver power, and I had to back down and try again, said Gold. In the context of off-roading, the Mazda's lack of hill descent control is also a demerit. Though your author didn't discern a big difference between the two S.U.V.'s downhill performance, Gold and I agreed that having the feature would have made things easier for novices. Like cruise control, it's not a feature you really need, and people survived for years before it showed up, but we'd still like it so we can focus on our line down a rocky hill. At no point, though, did either SUV feel like it'd leave us stranded on a trail that's appropriate for these two S.U.V.'s lower levels of capability. We've had fun sliding around in the dirt before in an identical Mazda, but recognized its limits. The Toyota handled sand and mud just fine, but as we've said before, you must remember the SUV's limits are much lower than the TRD off-road badges suggest. Left brain, right brain. Poke around each SUV in a parking lot, and the Mazda emerges as the more practical option, though the Toyota takes design to another level. Oh, how we wish these SUVs could meet in the middle. The RAV4 TRD off-road does a spectacular job of making the driver feel special. We're not just talking about the TRD-specific details that hit you in the face visually, but more subtle RAV4 details, like the attractive AWD disc that glows in different colors depending on the mode selected, or the chunky HVAC knobs with a rubbery material that speaks to the off-road adjacent audience. The grippy material also finds its way onto the back of the door pulls, a smart touch you'll feel before every trip. With the CX-50, the exterior is more subtle overall, but more off-road in feel than most Mazdas. A few chunkier styling details include the edges of the front grille and the contrasting trim over the wheel wells, but overall there's no mistaking this for anything but a Mazda. Great. Inside, the picture is completely different, with an upscale approach that doesn't quite match the outside. Some will be quite satisfied to let a mud-splattered exterior do the talking and enjoy a leather-lined, contrast-piped interior. The same is true when you compare a wilderness trim Subaru to a luxury Focus trim of the same model. Given our goal, we'd give a win here to the more talkative Toyota. But again, we wish the two could learn from each other. You might read on a spec sheet that the RAV4 has about 6 cubic feet more space than the CX-50, but the Mazda's 31.4 cubes are laid out better, with more helpful carved-out depressions on either corner. We can't count how often we've used these to secure everything from a bottle of milk to a small backpack in our long-term test car. The Mazda also allows you to fold down the rear seats from the cargo area, a feature the Toyota lacks. Perhaps the Toyota's higher seating position appeals to you, but how about the Mazda's wide-opening rear doors or the extra foot space the CX-50 leaves for rear seat passengers under the front seats? Then there's the issue of technology. Neither SUV has an impressive instrument cluster display, but when it comes to infotainment, we've really come to appreciate the Mazda setup. Almost every CX-50 has a 10.3-inch screen that's tilted toward the driver, a very helpful addition that makes you wonder why others, including Toyota, point their screens toward the center rear seat passenger. The RAV4's touchscreen is sized at 9.0 inches in our 2022 tester but expands to 10.5 on the DRD Off-Road for 2023. Plus, it adds Toyota's new, much improved infotainment tech. This category would have still gone to the Mazda, though, thanks to the way it combines the use of a touchscreen in Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with a control knob. With those phone mirroring features, the knob and its surrounding 4 buttons are unbeatable. After a while, you don't have to look down to find the controls on the center console, and unlike a touchscreen, you don't have to worry about the way your finger might press something else if you hit a bump as you're interfacing with it. The adaptive cruise control is better on the Mazda, too. When Gold found himself reversing off-road, the camera quality itself became a CX-50 advantage, which showed the detail in the rocks better than the fuzzy images in the Toyota. I felt more comfortable going backward off-road in the Mazda. Not that I do all my off-roading backward. Do you lease or buy cars? We like both the 2023 Mazda CX-50 and 2022 Toyota RAV4, despite their unique flaws. Accept the Mazda's overly harsh suspension and heavily weighted steering, and you're rewarded with smoother shifts and a slightly more entertaining experience on winding roads. This is true with either CX-50 engine. But stick with the Toyota's shift shock and overly loud engine, and you gain a slight advantage off-road as well as a charming style inside and out. The Mazda looks smooth and cool, whereas the RAV4 looks a bit like it's trying too hard. It's the CX-50 that is going to score at the singles bar, though Toyota might do better at Comic-Con. The question comes down to how long you keep your cars. If you're in and out of cars every 2 or 3 years, get the Toyota. The dedication to off-road design is clear and one we recognized. But its advantage off-road over the also flawed Mazda simply isn't pronounced enough to make up for its other disadvantages. We're long-term type buyers, so by a narrow margin, our nod here goes to the Mazda. Second place, 2022 Toyota RAV4 TRD Off-Road. Pros: charming design inside and out. Hill descent control helpful off-road. Better MPGs against all CX-50s. Cons: noisy engine. Transmission could be smoother. Missing a few practical interior touches. The charming Toyota may feel more secure off-road, but its on-road performance disappoints. First place, 2023 Mazda CX-50 Turbo Premium Plus. Pros: smart interior touches. A 10.3-inch display tilted toward the driver. ANF's 2022 Top Safety Pick Plus. Cons: too harsh suspension. Too heavy steering weight. Could be more efficient. With room for improvement, the CX-50 gets by thanks to smart interior details and driving dynamics.